Right, hello and welcome to this week's angling vlog. This week you join me at first light on the banks of the river and we're going to be fishing the Whip for silvers. Before we get into this week's vlog, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that's been leaving such nice comments on the channel and supporting the channel. It really is appreciated, and thank you all very much for the support that you show. If you are new around here, my name's Danny, and every Friday at 6 o'clock we put a fishing video on the channel. So if you feel like watching a video every Friday night at 6 o'clock, just hit that subscribe button below. There's plenty of adventures on the channel and hopefully many more to come. Today we're going to be fishing the Whip with ground bait for silvers. So the first thing I did when I arrived on the peg was mix up the ground bait. So the venue behind me can be a bit hit or miss at times, but you need to bring enough ground bait in case you're having that day where they really want it. So with me today I've brought 2 packets of the Hinders Mark Pollard supercharged ground bait. It's a ground bait that holds plenty of hemp seed in it and a nice dark bait. So the first thing I did when I arrived on the peg was mix the ground bait. Looking at the setup, I'm using my 5-metre Dinsmores Whip. I've got that down to a Dave Howell 2-gram whip float, and that's down to a bulk shot of number 4 Dinsmore weights. I've got around about 1.5 foot drop, then using 3 number 8 shots to a size 18 hook. Like I said, I always do the ground bait when I first arrive. By the time you've set up your box, put your keep net in and got all your stuff together, you're about time to start fishing and that ground bait will be ready. So last night I nipped out and grabbed some molehill soil and I've added that to the mix. What that's going to do is it's going to add weight and also bulk the mix out. And that's what you need when you're fishing a deep swim. You want that ground bait to get down on the bottom and carry those particles that are within. To that ground bait I've added pellets and some of the Cheshire particle hemp. Mixed up a couple of balls and I'm going to feed them straight into the swim now. So the session started off like always with the smaller fish moving in like the gudgeon, and slowly the roach and the odd skimmer have started to arrive in the swim, and that is normally how the session goes. Normally them small fish are in the area and you attract those better fish in. So after feeding those couple of balls of ground bait, we've had a couple of those roach, and as you can see on screen now, we've had 1 or 2 of those hand-sized skimmers. So with that, you join me about half an hour into the session. I hope you enjoy this week's vlog, and I'll catch us all at the end of the video. So a quick look at the side tray. Got Cheshire particle hemp, I say the maggots. Got a little box here where I've just put in some of the ground bait, so I've got a mix ready to go, so I can just feed little bits at a time. And at the top of the screen now I'll put a link to a recent vlog where we had a go with these Fuka baits, and this venue does hold a lot of roach and bream and skimmers, so I've brought them along today as a bit of a change bait and give them a go every now and again. But yeah, nice simple fishing today, simple tactics and a simple side tray. So a little tip for anyone that wants to try whip fishing: I always tie my rig, shorter than the length of your whip. And the reason for that is obviously as you swing the fish in, it's going to bend. So if you leave just a bit, like a foot or so at the butt of your whip, when you swing them in, they'll come straight to hand. You find if you put it the full length, when you swing them in, they'll be lower down and you'll be, reaching for the fish all the time. Just makes it a bit easier to fish, and obviously getting the fish in a lot easier and quicker. On the box now, and like you've seen from the start of the video, we've been really positive with our feeding. 5 or 6 balls of that ground bait loaded with that Cheshire particle hemp and those pellets, really attacking the swim on top of the shelf and just as it slopes out. And yeah, really being positive with our feeding and hoping that by feeding like that we're going to draw those skimmers in and the bream with the ground bait. I'm not going to feed maggot too much over the top, because the whole point of feeding that ground bait is to keep them fish in them lower layers. We're fishing an olivet or a bulk shot to keep that bait down, and you want to keep these fish down in the swim. You can see they have a little skimmer. So on each cast I'm just flicking it out, bringing it back in and just feeding a pinch of that hemp over the top. And that is just so you've got both things working for you. You've got the noise of bait going in, you've got the smell of the ground bait on the bottom, and obviously a bit of bait going into the swim as you're fishing. Just keeps topping it up and hopefully keeps the bites coming. The good thing about this ground bait is that it does fizz on the top. You can see the little bubbles coming up, which helps you with placing the bait on the same spot every time. And there's certainly one or two of these little skimmers in the swim at the moment, which have arrived gradually since we put that ground bait in. One thing that we are looking out for is them skimmers disappearing, them little skimmers, and us starting to get a lot more gudgeon. That is normally on this venue a sign of when you need to refeed the ground bait. But while we're getting them skimmers, we're just going to keep that hemp going over the top and just fish over that initial ball. And one of the first signs that change is coming in the seasons is when you start seeing the geese first thing in the morning. And as we move into autumn, that's definitely a sign that we're leaving summer behind and moving into those later months in the year, most definitely. So the swim did go just a bit quiet, and it was noticeable that just the bites just seemed to disappear a little bit, and the floats just suddenly moved off, and just a slightly better fish, because I did think maybe one or two better quality fish might have moved in, which is normally the case. When them better fish move in, it does go quiet, even for those small little skimmers, and that is a slightly better fish. We go just a slightly better fish, and hopefully the start of one or two more of those better quality skimmers appearing. So that's the size of nugget that I'm just feeding. Every so many runs through, just a nugget that big. Like I say, really reluctant to really ball it in. If we were getting bites every time we went in, I would definitely be putting bigger balls of ground bait in. But while the bites are, you know, sporadic and not every time you go in, then I'm just going to edge on the air of caution and just feed little nuggets like that. So it is great fun when you're fishing the whip. You know, you've only got that much line to play with, and you know, you just got to take your time and enjoy it. When you get ones that are proper bream and you're striking, it's just solid, that's when it does get nerve-wracking, and hopefully we can get one of them fish today. But there does seem to be quite a few of these skimmers in the river, and that is the beauty of river fishing. You never really know what you're going to catch. You know, your next fish might be a bream, it could be a chub, or it could be a roach or anything. Just got to keep them little nuggets of ground bait going in and just picking up the odd fish. There's definitely signs of fish in the swim, bubbling coming up, but you've got to hold it back and just slowly edge it through. It really has been great fun today, just catching these little skimmers on the whip. Just a 5 metre whip to hand, just feeding that ground bait and maggots. Great fun. So just starting now, you notice that wind's gone off a little bit, and feeding that ground bait, it's just got a bit less pellet and more hemp in it. Just starting to pick up a few more steady bites and more consistent. The fishing is definitely getting a lot more consistent as we're going into the session and building the swim. The bites are certainly a lot quicker, and they seem more condensed over the area we're fishing. So definitely Little Lofton today is the way to go. I've gone straight over it and the float's buried with the best fish of the day, most definitely, and hopefully it'll be one of those better quality bream. Now you just got to take your time and say there's no reel, there's no letting any line out. You just got to play the fish. It does feel a nice one, a nice bend in the whip. And potentially the fish of the day is a lovely gudgeon. They are beautiful fish with the spots, but that is potentially the fish of the day. Absolutely beautiful. And these small skimmers really have been a staple of today's fishing. So we've come to the end of the session now, and an enjoyable day on the bank. As you can see from that final net, we've had plenty of bites, and the net is made up mainly of skimmers. It's been hard at times and you've got to work at it to keep the bites coming, but it's been great fun on the bank getting those bites on the whip. At the end of the session, it is always good to look back and think how it could have gone better, and on this venue normally there is a lot more roach in that final net, and I think if I could go back and fish the session again, I would certainly have incorporated a bit more of a bream ground bait into the ground bait mix, a bit more fish meal that's aimed at those skimmers. But looking back, it's always easy, isn't it, to make those changes. Some days you've just got to fish the session that's in front of you and enjoy being bankside. I really have enjoyed the session today on the whip. It's been great fun. I'd like to wish you all tight lines in your own fishing. It'd be great if you could like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Tight lines.